Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm not out in the garden. I actually am going to be talking to you about 10 things I learned this year as a first-time gardener. And some of these lessons were learned the hard way, and some of them were things that I kind of already knew, but really saw the benefits from them. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with number one. Number one, read your seed packets thoroughly. So on the back of your seed packets, it gives you very detailed information about plant spacing, depth, when to sow. So for example, like this hollyhock package is saying that it takes 10 to 14 days for it to germinate and for you to see it to start poking through the surface. Seed depth, so when you're planting it, you want to just press it into the soil. You know, some seeds, it could be a 1/4 inch, it could be 1/8 of an inch, it could be an inch. So you want to make sure that you're reading your depth for when you're planting the seeds. It also gives you spacing. So for this one, it's 3 seeds every 2 to 3 feet. And then when your plant is about 3 inches tall, so about that tall, you're going to thin it out about, so that way there's 1 plant every 2 to 3 feet. So this is to prevent overcrowding, or your, like carrots are a great example of this. You want to thin out your carrots because otherwise they'll group together and then you get misshapen carrots, or they won't grow as big because they're fighting for nutrients and space. This one also has when to sow it outside, or if you're going to sow it inside, when you should be doing that. And then sometimes they even have special germination instructions. So like this one has all that information here on the back. So here is all that information. And sometimes they're kind of fun to read too. Like hollyhocks are called outhouse flowers. They were grown to block sight from the outhouses back in the, when people used to use those. So that was one thing that I really learned, because I didn't do that, especially like prime example again, my carrots. I did not thin them out, and I did notice that there was a lot of overcrowding, and I had to go back and thin them out later once the carrots were more developed, and it kind of sunk because I lost about half of my crop. Also, this is like reading it will also give you, or the sowing indoors or outdoors. So it gives you a lot of good information for that. Like if you're going to sow it indoors, when you need to move them outside, that kind of thing. Number 2 on my list is amending your soil. So this is giving good nutrients to your soil before you do any type of planting. And this also goes not just for raised container beds, but also in ground too. One of the things that I really want to do in an upcoming video is do a soil test to see what my soil is lacking, so that way I know what to amend for. Especially since I'm on a clay pan about 6 to 8 inches down, I need to know what I need to put in my soil to give additional nutrients. So some of those amendments were things that I added in the Hügelkulter video, which I will link down below. And that was coffee grounds, earthworm castings, chicken manure, things like that. Putting that into the soil and really working it in will help later on give that added nutrients. This winter I'll be amending my raised garden beds again and putting in some blood meal, which gives added nitrogen to the soil, which helps with the initial growth of the plant. Okay, number 3, fertilize, fertilize, fertilize. So you saw me use a lot of starter fertilizers this year, like this one, the EV Stone Organics Sure Start. So anytime I dug anything, I added some of that into the hole, which filters into the roots of the plant, which gives added nutrients. And then later on, once my plants were more developed, especially like my annuals, I was going in and giving them like this, the Scott Super Bloom, which really helps like my petunias just continually produce blooms. I also was fertilizing my roses once a month. Out in the vegetable garden, I was adding in the Espoma Garden Tone, or you could do Miracle Grow. That just, as your plant continues to grow, it's absorbing all that nutrients out of the soil. So sometimes it needs a little quick pep to put that nutrients back into the roots for them to continue to absorb. The bloom fertilizer has really high phosphorus, which helps with the blooming cycle. That's what helps the plant to produce flowers. So learning that was really important. Otherwise, I don't think I would have seen as high of productivity in my plants. So there are 3 types of fertilizer. The first one is the EB Stone Organic Sure Star, or Espoma Biotone is another. So that is your initial fertilizer that you put in before you plant. The second one is the weekly fertilizers like the Super Bloom or Miracle Grow. And then your third is your monthly fertilizer. So that would be Espoma, Garden Tone, the rose fertilizer that I was using, that's once a month. Or you can even do a slow release fertilizer at the initial time of planting, which are like little granules that you scoop in and then work it into the soil, and that does a slow release over time. So these are really important for the health of your plant and to see better production. I will also leave links in the description down below to some of these products that I'm mentioning. Okay. Number 4, and this is one that I did not do this year and will definitely be doing next year, is using a planting chart to better plant for your zone. So here in California, I garden in a zone 9B, and I was planting cool weather plants a little bit too late and was not seeing anything out of them. My Romanesco, I sowed that back in the end of March or beginning of April, and it was too late for that crop. So, you know, it's been growing all season, but it never produced anything. So now that we're coming into colder weather again, it's the beginning of November, I should be able to harvest that later on, probably in December once it produces heads. The same thing happened with my Brussels sprouts. I also had issues with sugar snap peas. I planted them, I got some production out of them, but then it got too hot and they died off. So knowing what plants are good for cool weather, what plants are good for warm weather, and then planting accordingly to that specific time period is really going to help. So I'm going to be doing a video later on where I'm organizing my seeds and then organizing them by when I should be planting them, and then charting out, you know, when I planted them, how long it takes for germination before I should see production out of them. That kind of thing is really going to help me have better results in my garden next year. Number 5, preventatively treating your plants for pests. So budworms, aphids, spider mites. I did not do this. I actually did treatments after I saw the signs of those types of bugs or pests on my plants, and it was a lot harder to keep up with it. So I think next year I'm going to go in and just do spray treatments once a week just to preventatively keep that from happening. And I think I'll have a lot better results where I won't see them attacking the flowers because the stuff is already there to guard and ward them off. And tying into that is saving money by getting pesticides and things like that that are concentrate and not ready to use. So I was going out and buying ready-to-use products and spending a lot of money because the problem was so bad that I had to use so much of it to keep on top of it. So I was buying one spray bottle that's about 16 ounces of product and going through it in a single sitting. And so, you know, buying that once weekly was really adding up. So I switched over to buying concentrate, which was a little bit more upfront, but that when you pre-mix it, it lasted me a lot longer. So one bottle, which was, you know, $22 of the concentrate versus $16 of the ready to use, was able to span and last me for 3 or 4 months because it was a concentrated formula. So just one way to save money. Also, you know, make that product last a lot longer. I could do more regular or more frequent treatments because I wasn't waiting to go to the store to go pick up that product. So that was number 6. Number 7 is also saving money by buying seed packets and sowing your own seeds versus going to the nursery and spending a boatload of money buying plants that have already been started for you. Also, one of the other things that you could do is set up a bulb swap or bulb exchange or seed swap or seed exchange with your friends or family. I did this with my dad with our dahlias, and we're going to be doing that again this next year. I will video and record that later on once the shipment comes in. But what we did is my dad and I got together. I bought dahlias, he bought dahlias, and they came in 2-packs. So we ended up swapping tubers from each of our packages. So I got one set of tubers and he got the other set of tubers, and it worked out great. Really like that. Some of those flowers you've seen in the garden were the Thomas Edison dahlias. We did a swap on that and a couple other things too, but they didn't really show, and I was disappointed about that. Number 8 is pinching your flowers for bigger crops. So flowers that you can pinch for bigger crops are things like dahlias, cosmos, zinnias, celosia. So once the plant is a little bit established and it has 3 to 4 sets of leaves, once it's sprouted out of the ground, you go and you pinch it at that 3rd to 5th leaf, at that stalk, and then it causes it to branch out, and then you get more production and more growth and better support out of your plants. I did that with some of my zinnias, and you've seen how tall they've gotten. I have zinnias out there that are over 6 feet tall. I don't think that would have happened had I not have pinched it. The stalks would have been weaker. They wouldn't have been able to stay upright, even though I did have to support them, but that worked out really good. Okay. Whew. My leg is falling asleep. Number 9 is drip irrigation. So I did not do this until almost the end of the season, and I wish I had done it sooner. Because I had a lot of issues with remembering to go out and water or keeping a schedule where I was going out and watering daily. Sometimes it was just too hot and I didn't want to. Once I installed drip irrigation, I didn't even have to worry about it. I could just sit back, relax, and know that it's on a timer and it was going to come on automatically and water my flower garden. So really recommend doing that. It's a time saver. I wasn't out there as frequently. I didn't have to worry about, my plants dying because I forgot to water them. Number 10, and this was a big one for me, is don't feel like you have to love your garden. It's a work of art. It is a living, breathing thing, and you're not always going to like the layout, some of the plants that you picked, the colors. There's numerous reasons why you might not like your garden, and that's okay. Maverick, excuse my cat. You're not always going to like your garden, and that's okay. And that was something that I had to learn for myself this year. I planted things, didn't like the plant, or didn't like where I planted it, or it got a lot bigger than I expected it to. And so it didn't suit the space where I initially planted it and had to end up moving them. I had stuff die that I wasn't expecting to, and I really wanted that plant to stick around because I really liked it. So because it's a living, breathing thing, things are going to change over time. And you're not always going to like it. Sometimes you'll really like it, or you might just like one tiny little area of your garden and everything else you hate. And that's okay. Don't worry about it. Focus on the things that you do like, the things that you can change it. And if there's something that you really don't like, pull it out. You don't have to keep it in there. Okay, that's it for today's video. Those are 10 things that I learned as a first-year gardener, and thanks for tuning into my channel. I will catch you later. Bye.